So this morning, I went to go buy index cards because I watched Spike Lee's MasterClass on independent filmmaking. And I thought it was really interesting that the way that he writes his features is he just collects ideas and inspiration on index cards. It could be a scene, it could be dialogue, could be a quote. And when he has enough index cards, then he just starts to lay out the film in order of where it should go. And I found that to be very liberating because I have been writing my first feature. I'm 83 pages in, and my brain just started to turn into mush in that last act. And I'm just like, what am I doing? What's the point? Especially because I feel like so much writing advice is like, you have to create your outline. Here's the inciting incident and the climax and all this shit. And like Spike was like, I don't even think in acts, which I think kind of shows in his filmmaking. Like he's not really a conventional storyteller, which is why, he has had so much influence and longevity in his career. But I already have a short film, romantic comedy short film, that I want to be a proof of concept for a feature. And I haven't started writing that feature, so I figured for that one, I can try this method. So we'll see how that goes. I feel like a lot of the writing advice I get from prolific writers is to just write every day until you have the draft done. Stephen King said that in his book on writing, which is a great read for writers. And Spike also said that in his masterclass that he will just keep writing every day, even if it's just 4 to 5 pages a day, until the script is done. And I have such a hard time with that because I'm so scattered because I'm in survival mode. Like I don't like wake up and think like, I'm just gonna write. It's like, damn, I need to book work. I have to do these things. I have to pay this bill. I have to go to this doctor. There's all these other like outside things that keep me from being focused, on top of just having a lot of like work in progress projects. So it's like, should I work on this? Should I work on that? Like I never really know what I'm gonna wake up and do until I wake up and I'm like, I'm in the mood to do that. And maybe that's just my process, and that's fine. But I really liked his approach to it. And also, I was struggling with writing the feature as well because it's a comedy, a coming of age comedy set in like the 2000s era. And there was a couple of things that were making me be like, why am I writing this? Like, one, I feel like there is this like nostalgia obsession that a lot of people have, especially in my generation, millennials. Like we grew up during a real good time, I think. And I feel like sometimes we romanticize the past because we're so frustrated with what's happening in the present. And one thing that Spike said in his masterclass when he was talking about writing Black Klansmen specifically is how you can write about something in the past or from an era in the past, but make sure that it connects to the now. And so that, I think, is what has been missing from the feature. The feature I've written 83 pages for already so far. The other thing that was making me feel like, why the fuck am I writing this, is like comedy. I was really thinking about like, what is the value of comedy right now in such serious fucking times? Like, yes, it is good to be able to laugh, but like as an artist and thinking about my responsibility, is this completely just self-indulgent to just want a funny coming of age story that connects to audiences that grew up during that era. And so I had to think about that. And what made me feel affirmed in wanting to write a comedy was going to see One of Them Days. And I had such a good time watching that film. It reminded me a lot of Friday, which is actually one of my favorite films of all time, because I just love day in the life films, slice of life, and I love a good comedy that feels very specific to the like community and culture that is featured in it. And I really had a great time watching One of Them Days, and I couldn't think of the last time I had so much fun at the movies, because I'm still kind of getting back into going to the movies regularly, and a lot of the movies that I've gone to see are like very serious subject matter, like Origin or The Nickel Boys, So that made me feel like, okay, comedy does have its place. Now, the value of it, I think, is up for debate. But I've been using my library card lately, which, get a library card if you don't have one. And I checked out this book called The Elements of Humor by Scott Dikkers, who is the founder of The Onion. And it's literally talking about exactly what it sounds like. But there was one thing that was really interesting where he was talking in here about how humor is just a part of our primal instincts. When you think of like babies understand humor before they can process complex emotions. Think about peekaboo and how they laugh, or how humor is something that is present even in animals. Monkeys, they love to kiki and laugh with each other. He also used the example of like sometimes dogs will play tricks, or pranks or whatever on their owners or whatever. And how society has moved to where we don't value it, just like we don't value art in general, really, unless it's something that can be heavily commodified and profited off of. And how this impacts our humanity, our ability to laugh and make jokes and find joy amongst each other is one of the most human things about us. And I think I'm always trying to find a way to blend humor with drama, because I feel like that's life. I don't feel like life is all just jokes, and it's not all just serious. It's a mix and a blend of both, and that's kind of what I strive to do. And so I think that gave me some things to think on before I go back and finish that draft, if I ever finish that draft. The one positive thing about being not stuck, but like being kind of in a holding pattern of like, what are you going to put out next? Because making films cost money, and I am broke. Is that there's no demand for your work. So you can get back to it when you feel like you can get back to it. And usually when I get back to it is when I feel a resurgence of energy towards it. And I would much rather write from that space than to just write every day just because I feel like I need to. Because then I come back to the work also with a fresh set of eyes. That happened to me recently when I reread a pilot of mine. And I was like, oh, this is actually funny. And like I hadn't read it in like over a year. And I was like, oh, this is funny. And also I have some new things to kind of zhuzh it up and flush it out with. So I was thinking about that a lot. And I was also in yoga class Saturday morning, and my yoga teacher always gives us this like thing to think about and meditate on. And one of the messages she had was learning how to embrace the process and be detached from the outcome. which is, I believe, much easier said than done, specifically when a positive result or outcome could dramatically improve your life circumstances, right? Like, so many of us are like, fuck, like, if I could just get to this next level and da-da-da-da. I also have been reading The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin, also from my local library. And he said something similar in this book, where he says, all art is a work in progress. It's helpful to see the piece we're working on as an experiment, one in which we can't predict the outcome. Whatever the result, we will receive useful information that will benefit the next experiment. If you start from that position, that there is no right or wrong, no good or bad, and creativity is just free play with no rules, it's easier to submerge yourself joyfully in the process of making things. And so when I find myself feeling very uncertain about what it is I'm doing, how it's going to get made, where's the funding coming from, is this even worth it, I get back to, am I enjoying it? Am I enjoying it? That's it. That's really the only thing that matters. Yes, showing up consistently and doing the work and taking the steps, that is something that we all should be doing. But, you know, when it comes to things like this, there's always that like third factor that we don't have any control over, which is luck, being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right person, or having the right eyes on you. That is something that you don't have control over. What you do have control over is the way that you reframe your approach to the work. Because a lot of people look at creative work, they approach it as like it's a corporate thing. Like, oh, I have quarterly goals, I have yearly goals, I gotta hit this benchmark. And it's like, creativity is fluid, and we're always creating. Having a conversation is creating. Like, daydreaming is creating. Like, we're always doing it. So why do we feel like we need to like create these rigid boxes and systems for us to be like, I'm good? Actually, that's not really what I was thinking, but my mind trailed off. It does that sometimes. Quite neurospicy over here, but I really don't know. All that to say, I really don't know what I'm going to work on today. I could work on the short film script for this feature and start writing ideas down for this feature. I could read and not write at all. I could finish writing a Substack that I started writing a week ago that I don't know if I'll ever put out. I could make art for fun. I could paint. I could draw. I could do a lot of freaking things. And that's a blessing. And I'm going to hang on to that.